What's up? What's up? What's up? How's everybody doing on this Tuesday morning? This is Shukri Wright, host of the Bleav in the Hub of Champions podcast, with yours truly, a man who I frankly admire greatly. And I'm not afraid to say this. The guy is a national television sports host on Stadium Network. Go check it out on your local smart TVs, wherever you are in the nation, as well as he's been on the Today Show. He's been on NBC, CNN, Sports Grid TV. I mean, the man has been in more homes in America than a hinge app. So that in itself, let's just tell you something. Cam Rogers, it's a distinct honor to have you on the pod, man. What's going on? How are you doing today?
So great to be with you. Appreciate that intro. I appreciate what you do in this industry. You are killing it right now, and it's great that we are collabing right here and going to be a good show, my man.
I appreciate that greatly. And I'm not tired. I am just amazed by what I've been watching in terms of the Stanley Cup playoffs. I mean, last night was insane. I was watching the Lightning and the Maple Leafs game, that insane comeback by the Maple Leafs down 4-1 and winning it 5-4 in overtime. I've been keeping my eyes on the Celtics as well, which we will start off with, in which tonight is a big night. Game 5. They're up 3-1 in the series. They have an opportunity to close the series out at home. There's no reason why this series should even be going back to Atlanta. If anything, when the J boys come to TD Garden later on today, there should be no suitcase packed. The only bag that should be packed is a Burka bag with cash on where and how they're gonna spend the money at Encore in Everett. For those of you that are in Boston, you know, and that's it. So, Cam, I just want to get your thoughts, overall view on the Celtics during this series, impressions, concerns that you have about the Celtics.
After this game tonight, the Celtics will be celebrating at the Harp. They will be throwing down because they will be celebrating.
They can be hungry already. It's only 9:40 in the morning.
Exactly. So this series is over, I think. I mean, no DeJounte Murray here for the Atlanta Hawks. I think that's a major hit for Atlanta. And obviously, you know me, I'm big on the betting side of things and the spreads. And when you have a money line of like minus 800, that's Vegas telling you this is a formality. Over. And even the spread is minus 13. I think the Celtics win this game by like 20 at least tonight. So I still think there's value in terms of the spread. But the Hawks have been bad ATS overall this season, 35, 45, and 2. And again, outside of Trae Young and DeJounte Murray for Atlanta, I haven't seen much from the Hawks in this series. So I think it's just, this is not like the Bucks series, right? You're not going to see Atlanta get this done as far as winning the series in general, and probably not tonight. Obviously, we have the Heat, which is a whole other story, beating up on the Bucks, which is really interesting to see.
We'll get to that in just a bit. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I think this is chalk. I think the Celtics will go ahead and do their thing at home, play better defense. I think the X factor is our guy, Robert Williams. He was a difference maker in that game 4. 29 minutes, 13 points, 15 boards, and blocked 2 shots. Like, this guy, I think, is going to ball out tonight. So, yeah, I think it's been a warm-up series for the Celtics in reality, Shukri, right? Like, I mean, things will get tougher as we go down the bracket here, but I think this series is over after tonight at the Garden.
You know what's interesting? On Saturday, I talked about this on my radio show in here in the Metro Boston, in which I said, listen, the number one thing that the Celtics have to do better, rebound, because I thought in game 3, the Hawks, they won a lot more of the 50-50 balls. You know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
They were a lot better in terms of rebounding, especially the offensive rebound side of things. And whenever the Celtics would make a push, there was always an answer. And you saw that late in the fourth quarter in game 3. Game 4, I thought there was a purpose. And it started with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Both had 31 points each. And I said, you know, if those guys could lead the way, everything else will fall into place. But as you mentioned, and you mentioned correctly, Robert Williams I mean, he is literally the difference between the Celtics being a championship team, which I genuinely believe that they are, and or being an elite team that's just missing a piece from winning banner number 18. So when you look at the Celtics and you look at like some of the things that they've done well in this series, what is one thing that stands out to you? What is one thing that gets you saying, if I'm any other team in the East right now, I don't think I really want to face the Celtics in the second round or even in the conference finals or anything like that.
Yeah, they've been uber efficient on offense, right? I think that's been the one constant for them throughout this series. And I think that will carry over into the next series, whomever that opponent is.
Yeah.
I will just go back to the rebounding, if I may, because there is nothing more frustrating, Shukri, when you're watching a basketball game and you're rooting for your team and they are getting outboarded.
Oh, yeah.
Frustrating to watch because it's like, especially on the offensive glass, right? When you are not when the other team is getting all those second chance points, it's like, for God's sakes, rip the board. So that was a little bit concerning for me going into game 3, game 4, even though they won game 4, seeing those stats, especially in game 3, though, when they got really out rebounded. That is a little element of concern, right?
Yeah.
You have to wonder if that's some foreshadowing as we go forward here deeper into the playoffs when the Celtics are playing against more athletic, larger teams down the board here, down the bracket. So something to keep in mind there. But I think the most impressive thing, obviously, has been the efficiency on the offensive side. And I think that's going to continue throughout.
Absolutely. And I think that was something that was a message that Joe Mazzulla really hammered down on the players. Hey, you need to do a better job on crashing the boards, offensive rebounding, getting after the 50-50 balls. And when this team is rolling, they are absolutely lethal shooting from beyond the three. And I talked about this before the postseason began. The number one concern that I have was when the Celtics are shooting 30% and higher, they have the best record in the NBA. But when they're shooting below 30%, their record really like dips. And in the NBA playoffs, unless you're the Golden State Warriors,
right,
like you're not going to win games by just relying on the three. And I've been imploring, going back to last playoff season, the Celtics have got to do a better job of creating offensive opportunities, especially in the paint. And when you got guys like Robert Williams and Al Horford, playoff Al Horford, may I add, like that now creates a whole nother element where it's like, I don't think you could stop this team. And even the bench, and you looked at guys like Malcolm Brogdon, there's a reason why he was just named the Sixth Man of the Year award. It's like this is an impossible storm for any team to handle. Your thoughts?
Yeah, going to football real quick here. I'm a big boy football fan. I love elite offensive line play and elite defensive line play.
That was a defensive lineman, so I love it. Oh, yeah.
Trenches, baby, because that's where the game is won. Applying that logic to basketball, I am an old school basketball fan. I want players eating the boards, and I want easy shots. So the reality is, if you rely on the three, I mean, this is just basic math here, and you have a bad game from three, I mean, your margin for error is thinner to win a basketball game as compared to a team that is efficient with a 2-point shot or has a couple of trees down low that can be, janitors, if you will, and clean things up.
Yeah.
So that is another element too. And I'm glad you bring that up about concern with the Celtics, that reliance a little bit from beyond the arc. And obviously this is a new day and age of the NBA. This is not the 90s. This is not Larry Bird's era or what have you.
Yeah.
But it's something to keep in mind because variance is very much part of the 3-point game. And again, unless you are the legends of Steph and Clay and what have you, you're going to have some bad games from beyond the arc. How do you adapt from there? That is going to be the key. And maybe tonight the Celtics are bad from three, but still dominate. That is the perfect scenario, I think, if you're a Celtics fan. If they're bad from three and they dominate tonight, that will give the players the confidence, okay, we don't have to be magical from three every single game. We have other ways to win.
Exactly. And as we go from like the hard court to just the overall like Boston sports scene as it currently stands, I can't remember a time, I probably ever, and especially since I moved to Boston several years ago now, where the Bruins and the Celtics have legitimate chances to win championship in their leagues. And I look at the Bruins betting odds when they first when they first began the season and versus now, where like they've been the prohibitive favorites for months
Yeah.
because of just how dominant they've been. And you look at the Celtics in terms of like their betting odds and them being potential favorites as well. And you look at the developments that happened last night, Heat, Bucks, and the ramifications of the Heat potentially closing out the Bucks, which would be a shocker. It really would be, considering that you expected this to be a lot more of a series, but Jimmy Butler has said, I'm going to show everybody why I'm a bad man down in South Beach. I mean, 56 points last night in game 4 for the Heat. How has the Heat potentially upsetting the Milwaukee Bucks impacted the betting odds for the Celtics in terms of their chances of winning an NBA title?
Well, I think that the Celtics will become even more chalk if the Bucks don't end up advancing, because obviously a lot of people in the public were on the Bucks going into the NBA playoffs. But just going back to reliability, if you will, and variance, you've got Jimmy Butler dominating, Jimmy Buckets, but how many times throughout the NBA playoffs can he do that? Throw up 50 plus points, right? And then, so you have to think about that. So in theory, you're going to see some regression to the mean from Jimmy Butler. He will not be shooting 50 points plus every single game in the NBA playoffs. So who else can step up? Is it Bam? I don't know. So something to keep in mind there with the Heat. I will say, though, they are winning this series. The Heat are.
Yeah.
What they'll do in the next round,
who knows? Because they'll be playing either the winner of the Knicks and Cavs series.
Right.
And that will be if it's the Knicks, which I think it will be. This will bring my memories of the 90s. And I was never like a hardcore Knicks fan, but I remember those Knicks Heat matchups in the late 90s, like especially like 90, 98, 99. Whoo! This is going to bring back a lot of vibes. You get what I'm saying?
Bring back some memes, no doubt.
Oh, yeah.
It's been super impressive what Jimmy's doing.
Absolutely. And I feel like in the NBA may very well be like a common theme on this pod, which is shocking. I know the draft is in 48 hours, Patriot fans. Cut me some slack.
By the way, so I'm from New England, born and raised, all that good stuff. Have a lot of ties to the area. You've got the Bruins, you've got the Celtics, both with legitimate championship chances.
Yeah.
And Boston sports radio hosts talk about
Patriots,
NFL draft, blah, 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 ad nauseum. And I get it too. My dad complains about this all the time because he does listen to the knuckleheads, as he calls them. Yep. You're not one of them, of course. But he is basically like, all of these good things are happening, but yet these hosts decide to just crap on whatever the Patriots are doing. And again, I get it, because you can't go against the Shield, right? The NFL is the NFL. It is the king of ratings. And I get it, but it's just so interesting.
It really is. And it's been a gripe of mine for a little while now. But I think once we get past this week, and this is just my personal opinion, unless I can't determine what these producers are going to do. I don't know. But once we get past this week, I think the focus really would turn on to 100% Bruins and Celtics, because I can't help but to think to myself, we may be in for an epic round 2 of both playoffs between Bruins, and I'm going to say this, and I said this last night on Twitter, and of course, people are already laughing, which I knew was going to happen. I actually believe that the Leafs could actually close out the Tampa Bay Lightning, whether it's in Game 5 or in Game 6, doesn't matter. But I think the Leafs are actually going to win this series. It's going to be potentially Bruins, Leafs in round 2, and Celtics and Sixers. I mean, that I think would be
That's good stuff.
it's going to be really fascinating in terms of just the storylines. How is the health of Joel Embiid? Because the knee has been balking and has been a somewhat of an issue, and as well as like what more can you get from Maxey, Tobias Harris, and as well as some of the other key players on the 76ers, and as well as just the idea that the Sixers have something to prove because they have been consistent playoff failures and disappointments over the last 3 or 4 years. So, Cam, like, what are your early impressions on what isn't official formality just yet in terms of the Celtics Sixers? But I think we both can agree that's going to be very likely the matchup for round 2.
Yeah, so you are dealing with two things if you're the 76ers. One, it's the narrative. They can't advance in the playoffs. Two, you've got the health of Joel Embiid. Put those two things together. I don't know how much more you can squeeze out of Harris and Maxey against the Boston Celtics in a series. It's one thing against the Brooklyn Nets. All right. No offense to the Nets, but they are not the Boston Celtics. So oddly enough, Shukri, I think the Celtics actually have the cakewalkier path, if you will, in the NBA playoffs as compared to the Bruins in the Stanley Cup playoffs. I genuinely
agree. I agree with that 1,000%. And because, oh my God, I'm really trying not to get ahead of myself, but it is hard in terms
You're looking your chops right now as a fan.
I'm really I'm licking my chops because I will say this again. I expect Bruins leaves round 2. And I actually mentioned this somewhere just a little while back. If that happened, do you not understand the ratings? That it is going to generate some serious ratings because we know that the Bruins and Leafs have 10 years of history. Obviously, the rivalry goes way back to like 1924, but we're talking about since 2013, the Bruins, and I say this with an evil smile, the Bruins have been responsible for heartbreak and as well as the trauma in the city of Toronto and the province of Ontario. And I said this once before, one of the great hilarious ironies is if this was the year that the Maple Leafs were to actually win a playoff round, congratulations. Guess who you got next? The Boston Bruins.
The buzzsaw, if you will.
The buzzsaw. So I just want to get your your thoughts on any thoughts you may have on that potential matchup as both teams are up 3-1 in their respective series.
You know, it's interesting. You mentioned the rivalry historically with Toronto. I always thought that you guys hated the Canadians more so.
Oh, we do.
As a rival. Okay.
We do.
And then you have the Canucks too from 2010, 2011. Yeah. But that sort of has waned because the Canucks suck, right? That's my understanding.
Correct.
So Boston has been an absolute power force, talking about the Bruins all season long. The Celtics had their ebbs and flows a little bit, but I mean, the Bruins never wavered throughout the regular season. I mean, they just steamrolled their way, and I'm willing to bet they are a top 2 favorite in terms of the betting odds live right now. I haven't checked Vegas lately as far as NHL is concerned, but this will be interesting and a funny, hilarious ending for Boston Bruins fans, because we will assume that the Bruins win this series against Toronto, and Toronto can quickly celebrate that series win over Tampa Bay, but look out, you got Boston, and the narrative continues for Toronto. I'm also looking at down the bracket a little bit, Shukri, and selfishly as a company man, I want the Rangers. I want the Bruins going at it because you and Laz.
Oh my! I take it that you saw the clip. I did. Oh my God!
We're rooting for it, buddy. We want it.
It's wild because go ahead. No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's it.
No, because I made this prediction, and I try to remember if it was February or March. I said I really believe it's going to be Rangers Bruins in the Eastern Conference Finals. But if it does happen, New York, Boston, Rangers, Bruins, who they haven't faced each other in the postseason since 2013, round 2, and the Bruins were on their way to the Stanley Cup Finals that year. I mean, my God. I told Laz on the pod, like, listen, I have couch here in my apartment. You can crash on. I'm dead serious. Come on up. But understand this: you are going to get roasted in the city. Like, especially, like, we know that Ranger fans travel well, and Ranger fans, like, I was here. I was at the game, Rangers Bruins, like, during the regular season at TD Garden, and Ranger fans, they were loud, they're obnoxious, and it was just like, y'all pissing me off. Now, if it were to happen, what a storyline it would be, especially for me and like Johnny Lass. And for those of you that don't know, we started the official brand new national NHL pod, Pass Shoot Score. Check it out on Bleav Network. It's also on YouTube as well. Hopefully one day soon enough, it'll be on Bleav TV as well, which is now a thing, amazingly enough. Also, on that point there, it's very hard for me, and even if you being a native New Englander, you understand this, and being someone who follows closely what's going on in terms of the Boston sports scene, in terms of like just the excitement and the anticipation between the Bruins and the Celtics. Can you remember a time in Boston sports where it was something similar to what we're experiencing now? I personally can't. I mean, maybe I'm speaking out of ignorance, but I can't remember a time like this.
Well, you had the Patriots in the Super Bowl back in 2004 against the Philadelphia Eagles.
And I was coming right off this Red Sox in their curse. Gotcha.
Exactly. I went right to that, right? I mean, there will never be a moment, I don't think, in my lifetime growing up in New England that compares to actually when the Red Sox beat the Yankees in the ALCS, because that was the World Series to a lot of people out there.
Walk us through what that moment was like as you, someone who was living here at that time.
So it's interesting. I am a contrarian at heart and a pain in the ass kid. I was a
so you're a young Felger, basically.
So I was not a Boston fan, despite growing up amongst all the trophies and the banners and what have you. I chose to be a Baltimore fan. That's where I live now, in the Baltimore area. So at the time, actually, I was obsessed with Kevin Millar. So I followed him to the Baltimore Orioles when he left the Red Sox. But at the time, 2004, I was a Millar guy. So I was involved in, the series and what have you. And I mean, down 2003, never been done before. You saw this distinct personality difference between the Yankees, high decorum, buttoned up, no beards allowed. And then a bunch of idiots, Red Sox, who just were loose. Don't let us get to game 5. Don't let us get to game 6. And sure as hell, don't let us get to game 7. Lo and behold, it happened. And so I think that mentality that the Red Sox had gave them the edge over the Yankees in that series. And I just remember jubilation, excitement, obviously, in the town, in the area. I'm from Nashua, New Hampshire, more specifically. But obviously that World Series is just groundbreaking and then paved the way for more for the Red Sox.
Exactly. And just quickly, I want to touch on the Patriots because we know that the draft is coming up in a couple of days. And by the way, Aaron Rodgers is officially a New York Jet. The trade was made official in what I will describe as probably the greatest moment in the history of ESPN. And I mean that wholeheartedly. The way that Adam Schefter broke the news live on NFL Live in real time, and the reactions of Marcus Spears, Dan Orlovsky, and as well as Mina Kimes, who I love dearly, it was, and as well as like the host, it was just like, how? And now is that it's official. And I said this on Twitter, and I know Patriot fans who have been defending Mac Jones to the ends of the earth want to throw a hissy fit. Not my goddamn problem. Not my problem. But the Patriots have now the 4th best quarterback in the division. I would actually put Aaron Rodgers in terms of talent ahead of Josh Allen. I really would. And then Tua Tagovailoa, number 3, Mac Jones, number 4. The draft is coming up, and there was rumblings as of just a few days ago on Friday that day the Patriots met with Kentucky quarterback. And I'm trying to remember his name. It was Will
Levis.
Will Levis, yes. And I just said to myself, this is like the old adage of you're in a early relationship. Well, you're about a year and a half, about almost 2 years into the relationship, and now your eyes are wandering, flirting with other potentials that are out there. So, Cam,
Wandering eye.
Wandering eye. There you go. So now, Cam, they had the 14th overall pick on Thursday night.
Yep.
And you know what the Patriots needs are. They need a tackle from the worst way possible. They still need a number one receiver. And dare I say, I think they can still use another high profile secondary play, whether it be a safety or a corner.
Totally.
Do you foresee any real possibility that the Patriots could actually take a quarterback and do the unthinkable? Or do you think that they end up drafting a tackle at pick number 14?
I think tackle would be smart. Again, we talked about how I'm a big boy football fan, yes. Right? You win in the trenches and what have you. And that offensive line last year for the Patriots was absolutely putrid, especially at the tackle position. And they're okay in the interior. But I look at somebody like Darnell Wright out of Tennessee, had a fabulous combine, number 3 ranked tackle by PFF, flashed a lot of versatility as a 4-year starter there with the Vols. And there's going to be this run of quarterbacks, Drew Creed, that I don't even think Will Levis gets to 14. So the Patriots are probably going to have to make a move if they really want him. And I don't think that's going to happen because you're going to have this influx of really good value down the board because of that quarterback run at the top. And so somebody like Wright would make a lot of sense for me. Maybe they go wide receiver. I'm hearing some buzz about Quentin Johnston out of TCU, Jordan Addison out of USC. Those guys will probably be there, but they're not game breakers. Like, that's the type of receiver that the Patriots need right now. Juju is great, but like, I think he's a number 2. And I think a lot of Patriots fans have some PTSD from 2019 when
drafted N'Keal Harry, that bum.
Yeah, so maybe they should stick with free agency and trades for a wide receiver, at least a number 1 guy. But I think tackle would be a really smart decision. And, you know, there is some minor buzz out there that maybe the Patriots can make a move for, say, a Trey Lance. But it sounds like they want to stick with Mac for now. But is he the answer? I don't know yet. It's hard to know.
I genuinely don't think so. Unless he has a monster year this upcoming season, I don't think he's the guy long term. And I've been very consistent about this on my radio show and as well as even doing podcasts. So I don't believe in him long term, because even though you brought back Bill O'Brien, yay, great, congratulations, but you made that move out of it being a reactionary move and not out of like, you know what? Last year, we could have used a guy like Bill O'Brien instead of going with whatever BS plan that there was in place by Bill Belichick.
Right.
I'm like, okay, you bring him in now, but is the relationship salvageable between Mac Jones and Bill Belichick? I'm not entirely sure, but time will tell. But in terms of the Patriots' potential draft pick choices, there was a play that came to mind as you were talking about that tackle from Tennessee, Zay Flowers from Boston College.
Yes.
Is there a chance that the Patriots could take him at 14? I personally think they should take him at 14 if he's available, but it wouldn't surprise me if he goes like somewhere in the top 10 or something.
Yeah, I think he's going to get snatched up in the top 10. So listen, I think the ideal selection would be Zay Flowers there at number 14. Spent an entire day in Foxborough last month, which I think is pretty telling. So he could be that game-breaking guy. After Zay, it's going to be a big drop-off as far as wide receivers are concerned. So I wouldn't reach. I would go tackle in that scenario, or even cornerback. I mean, now that Rodgers is in this division, there is more pressure in terms of secondary play for the Patriots now. Of course, McCourty is gone. Yeah. It sounds like they're going to move Jalen Mills to safety. So you got to fill that corner slot there. So something to keep in mind as far as that is concerned. They did re-sign Jonathan Jones, which I think is good.
Yeah.
But I think Zay Flowers ideal, if not tackle or cornerback. In
terms of the AFC East now, and I want to go big picture here.
Yep.
Now that Aaron Rodgers is officially a New York Jet, and you look at the landscape of the AFC East between the Dolphins, they are not going anywhere. Say what you will about Tua Tagovailoa, but you look at the talent they have on both the offense and the defensive side of the football, completely undeniable. Even though they lost to Buffalo, but still, that I think Miami is really trending in the right direction. And you look at Buffalo, and you can't help but to think, with all the talent that they have on defense, especially on offense, has their chance to win a Super Bowl come and gone already. And now with the Jets, and you have Aaron Rodgers, and he's going to be working with Bryce Hall and as well as Garrett Wilson as well. Where do the Patriots, in your opinion, fall in the AFC East? And do you even think that they are still a playoff team at this time, given how stacked the division is?
I think the talent differential among these four teams is thinner than what people realize. To your point, the Bills, they stunk up the joint against the Bengals in the playoffs at home. How do you do that? That's pathetic. Their run defense was awful. They did not win the line of scrimmage. Number two, I am not as high on Aaron Rodgers as maybe you are. He wasn't overly impressive with the Green Bay Packers last year. And you have to wonder, does some of that carry over? Now, I know he was disgruntled and what have you, but we're talking about the New York Football Jets, perennial losers, have not made the playoffs since 2011. They're on the up and up. The defense is good. Can they run the football? Do they have that game-breaking wide receiver? Is Garrett Wilson that guy? I don't know. And then you look to the Miami Dolphins. Their offensive line is putrid. It's porous. They can't run block. That's why Tua's getting hurt. They can't run the football, so you have these third and longs, and defenses are teeing off on this poor guy to the point where he almost retired. That is all to say, Patriots fans, it's not all that dire, because you still got Bill, you still got presumably a better offensive line after this draft. Maybe that wide receiver, you got Juju, a veteran guy. Who knows? And of course, you've got my guy, Matthew Judon. I'm a Ravens fan. I miss him dearly. He's a game breaker, and that edge game is good for the Patriots. So I could see a lot of parity in this division, actually.
And final question to wrap up the podcast. And you look at in terms of the NFL, and this is why the NFL is always going to be king. No matter what time of year it is.
Yeah.
They don't have games until August for preseason. We're still talking about the draft that's 48 hours away. And I look at the Patriots, where like we know that where they land in terms of the first round, but we also know like what are some of the needs. And I look at the offense, the offensive line, and then the receiving core. And I know my faith in Bill Belichick is weighing in terms of being able to draft a receiver, which I don't trust him from being able to cook a medium rare steak on a Sunday night. So the question I'm getting to is, in terms of the Patriots' needs, do you Bleav that they will be able to address a significant portion of what they need through the draft? Or do you think they still have to dabble into the free agent market at this point in juncture?
Well, they are littered with picks this year, a bunch of fourth round selections, a few sixth round selections, and there is a lot of depth in the wide receiver market this year. So I think the Patriots could probably get a couple of good guys, a Tank Dell out of Houston, Josh Downs out of UNC in the third round, fourth round, something along those lines. So I think if they get their tackle at 14 and then go crazy with the wide receivers and cornerbacks after that, I could see a very much improved Patriots squad. Now, obviously, you have to develop these guys and execute on the football field, but on paper, there is big time potential for the Patriots to improve in the draft alone. As far as the free agent market is concerned, it's kind of thin at this point anyway, but they could still maybe conjure up some deals here and there. But I think this is a massive draft for Bill Belichick's job, to be honest with you.
Absolutely. And because his job is on the line. And I know that Robert Kraft cannot possibly be happy in down in Foxborough.
He's getting impatient, I bet.
Yeah, I really do Bleav that. And that's part of the reason why I do think there is a world of pressure on Bill Belichick this season. It starts with the draft on Thursday. Cam Rogers of Bleav Network, and you also have seen him on Stadium. You still see him on Stadium Network as well. Cam, thank you for your time and thank you for hopping on the pod with me, man. It's been an absolute blast, man. Thank you.
Hey, great chatting with you, my man.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Thank you, man.